This is Counter Shot Master, where I talk boxing and fighting in general. I also address some of the controversial issues surrounding boxing, which could end up getting hot for some people. So if the heat's kind of unbearable, you should probably get on out of here. Everybody else, stay, because in the House of Truth, the aim is not to offend, but to look at things from a different perspective. I've had to change my name. They stole my name, so it is Counter Shot Master. I am going to discuss, hopefully briefly, the fight between Teofimo Lopez and Martin. I'm late. It was the weekend before this past weekend, and hey, I I don't do this much, and you have to feel good to get into the subject matter. So I'm feeling a little better, and I want to drop this because it seems everyone is saying Teofimo Lopez lost that fight, and quite simply, I don't agree. I'm not a fan of Teofimo Lopez. I'm not a fan boy, period. I love boxing and fighting. I love fighting, period. And combat, if you will, combat. I love combat. And so I'm looking at this from the perspective of, who's the better guy on that particular night. And even though everybody is saying Teofimo lost and this other guy got robbed and so on and so forth, that's actually not the case. I looked at the fight the first time, and I didn't score it, but obviously I was looking at who was winning, who was losing, and to me it was obvious that Teofimo won on points. We're going to talk about those knockdowns too, and but then after the fight was over with, well, take that back. Matter of fact, during the fight, the commentators talking about from Bradley to what is it, Tessitore, I guess is the guy, and then you have Andre Ward. All these guys are as wishy-washy as all get out, so bought off. But the point is, they were talking one way during the fight, and they got wishy-washy. They started talking out of both sides of their mouth. In the beginning of the fight, it started out with a knock to Teofimo Lopez for whatever reason, and basically they just want to give the guy a psychological profile instead of just dealing with the fight itself. And maybe Lopez is a study in psychology, but nobody's as great a study in psychology and boxing right now than Tyson Fury, and they never give him that type of negative talk. They only deal with Tyson Fury from a positive perspective, which makes no sense to me. But we're talking Lopez here versus Martin, and that's what I'm going to deal with. So, in the very beginning of the fight, it was kind of odd to me, the approach they did take, because I'm not sure if it was Tessitore. I get these guys. I get these guys confused because they're so full of crap. I don't really listen to them during the fights, because if you listen to them, it's like you're looking at a whole different fight. So I pay attention to the fight itself. The first thing that I want to look at is,
so I wanted like, to share this really cool
very beginning, the very beginning of the. When did they start doing this? The very beginning of the fight, we had statements being made, and let's see. of them. Okay, one of them was this.
To be rematch. Mark Friedel, I said this to you earlier tonight, and it's often the case when we try to size up Teofimo Lopez that sometimes you prepare to call his fights and you feel like forget the high-functioning boxing IQ as what you need. You need a psychology degree. He is a unique
Hey, you need a psychology degree.
We'll get to that in a sec. Listen, no one ever planned for Heisman night to become like a big date on the boxing calendar. There was no marketing push. You don't need that stuff. All you need is the right kid on the right night.
So
I think
they start the narrative.
Robert is largely right. Teofimo is powerful. Teofimo is explosive. He's the reason that we are here. He captivated this night. But I also
slight
think every
towards
time he comes
Lopez.
to the ring, it's a test of his
Talking
head.
about his psychological.
I've been his head all week. We shall see now in the real test.
The psychological position. They need to leave that stuff at home. It's and if they're not going to be fair across the board, which they're usually not, then they don't just anything at all. So that's one thing that they did early. Okay. So I'm just trying to set this up. They've already kind of set a narrative about Lopez and where they're going to go, who knows. But that's the first thing. The fight was like this. It was, I'm not going to call it boring, but it wasn't as exciting as it could have been. Lopez was the aggressor the entire fight, okay? Martin was fighting off of his back foot, which is fine if you can do that effectively. But here's the problem. If you look at how Martin was handling his business the entire fight, he basically looked for the check hook the entire night. He was looking for that check hook and hoping he could follow up on that, okay? Now, problem, you're dealing with a southpaw versus an orthodox fighter. Teofimo Lopez is obviously orthodox. What happens is you get into a situation where feet get tied up, head butts occur, so on and so forth. Now, Lopez basically walked down Martin the entire fight. Now, most people, if the roles were reversed, they would say that Martin was the aggressor during this fight, and they would only say aggressor. You have to be very cognizant of the language that's being used and how it's being used in boxing or anything else you listen to. Listen to what's being said, listen to what's not being said when you're talking to somebody, because people are full of crap. So nobody mentioned anything about effective aggression in the first place in this fight, because Teofimo Lopez was actually the effective aggressor. Why was he the effective aggressor? And why is it important to say effective aggressor? Because that's what matters, not just the aggressor. You can be aggressive all night long and get nothing, get no points, get nothing for it, just get beat up walking into things. And they give people credit all the time for being the aggressor, even though they're getting beat up. For instance, when Ricky Hatton was fighting Floyd Mayweather, that was a long time ago, but it seems I remember them talking about how Hatton was the aggressor and so on and so forth, but he was getting beat up. He wasn't effective. He wasn't an effective aggressor. And if that's not a good example, I think it is. But if that's not a good example, there are 1,000 examples you can look at on your own. Now, so Teofimo was the effective aggressor because he was landing punches. He landed numerous right hands to the body, and he did it all night long. Did he land other punches? Yes, he did. And I'll get to that. So Martin, he was effective at times. He was effective with his check hook right there. But guess what? That's not a clean punch. That's a slap. So if the judges are really doing their jobs, then you don't get a score for that. You're saying, what? What are you talking about? Well, here, let me see if I can run that back. Okay. This stuff goes on all night. Let's watch Martin. See if we can catch it. All right. Martin decides to step forward. He does that infrequently during the course of this fight. And this is for study purposes only. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this or not, but it's for study purposes only. It's not monetized anyway. This is for study purposes only. So let's watch. Martin is on the move, and he's that way the entire night. Now, when Shakur Stevenson was on the move against, say, like Nakatia, the big Nigerian with a lot of power, Stevenson was criticized all night for this. But Tim Bradley began to praise how Martin was fighting and talked about how he was appreciating these fighters who fight like this. Remember what they said about Shakur Stevenson, though. What Teofimo's finding out right now is he's not the white guy anymore. And I'm going to get to that too, because one reason why I don't like Teofimo Lopez is because all those N-word statements he was making when he was talking to Devin Haney, when they should have been mixing it up. So now Teofimo's getting his wake-up call. He's not the guy. So we got the guy from overseas somewhere who's now in his backyard, and they are doing what they're going to favor the other guy, because Teofimo, hey, at the end of the day, he ain't nothing but a Puerto Rican or what have you, and he's got psychological problems. So the tide turns during the course of this fight, and they make it a point to become very critical as much as possible against Lopez. And that's how people play this game. You saw what was going on in that first round. Now, Martin initiated that headbutt, not Lopez. Okay, that's pretty much how the fight went the entire night, with Lopez going forward. Now, he was being unintelligent in his attack mode because he wasn't cutting off the ring, the way a man should be cutting off the ring. He was following Martin, the whole night, which that's an amateur mistake. I don't get it, but hey, it is what it is. I didn't say it was pretty. I said Lopez won. He won on points. Okay. So the headbutt was caused by Martin, and it is what it is. I believe he started bleeding a little bit after that. What we're going to get into here that's very important right now is a knockdown, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to analyze that knockdown, because they didn't even properly talk about the knockdown. They acted like the knockdown was a legal knockdown, was legal. They didn't have much to say about it. Ward, at some point, it was either on the first knockdown or the second knockdown, finally mentioned how the feet are tied up. We know that it's common that the feet get tied up when you have a southpaw versus orthodox fighter. And this is no different. This situation where the knockdown occurred was a situation where Lopez was trying to jump in, get his. He got that lead foot on the outside of Martin's lead foot, right at the time of the check hook, of course. His foot was firmly down and trapped behind Martin's, which, of course, Martin knows this and took advantage of this. And what it does, it becomes a takedown. It becomes a takedown. And so it should not be considered a knockdown. Now, because they counted it a knockdown, I scored it accordingly. I went on and gave the guy a 10-8 round. Now, the other thing is I didn't have to give him a 10-8 round because he didn't do enough. Martin didn't do enough. Even if you count the knockdown, he didn't do enough to warrant a 10-8 round. So I really should have just called it a 10-9 round. But just for the sake of fairness, so to speak, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And even with that, let's see how the scoring turns out. Because here's what happened. I looked at the fight. I looked at Lopez as winning the fight, no problem. Then after I saw the fight and I kind of looked on social media, I don't remember if it was the day after or later that night, and everyone was saying that Lopez had lost that fight and that Martin was robbed. And I couldn't believe it, so I went back and scored the fight. Now, I scored the fight. And after scoring the fight, what I came up with was, I believe I came up with I believe my score was 97, 93 in favor of Lopez. Round one, it was a 10-9 round for Lopez. Yeah, I scored the fight 97-93. I believe one of the judges scored the fight 97-92, and they went off about it, but I had one round even. I had round 7 as an even round. So, even if I had given it to Martin, it wouldn't have made a difference. What you're seeing is what you're getting here. Now, I'm going to go back and deal with this knockdown. Okay? What you see is what you get. Lopez followed the man all night. He landed some check hooks. Many he didn't. And a lot of them were slaps. Slaps don't count. They're not punches. All right. Now, on the subject of the knockdown, you look at these. If you look at the photograph, this is the initial situation. Look at Teofimo Lopez's foot. This is where he steps. He stepped in, then he stepped to the outside here. Okay? Once he stepped to the outside, he's already trapped. Now, Martin knows where his foot position is. He knows exactly what he's doing. So he's come with the check hook already. This check hook has already been executed. Martin knew where he was coming. Okay? And the check hook's already been executed. So Lopez is already trapped here and off balance. There's nowhere he's going to go but down, because the momentum and the power and momentum coming from the check hook obviously is going to take Lopez to his right. All right? So what happens next is, let's see. Let's go ahead and well, let's see. All right. What you get into is what I just showed you is the initial movement. The next movement after that is here. So you see that the momentum already, Lopez is on his way down. It's not from the punch, it's because his feet got tied up, as I said. At this point, Martin's pulled in a bit, because obviously he's pulling the punch and he's going to spin out. Okay? So Lopez is already on his way down. Okay? As you can see. All right. So now the next step in that comes right here. Lopez trying to catch himself. All right. And you can see that Martin is on the verge of stepping out. Okay. Lopez is trying to catch himself. You see that his foot is still over here because that's where it was initially trapped. Okay. And then, of course, the end result is just pretty much what you see right there. The end result is that Martin is stepping out. He's trying to make it look like he had a clean knockdown. He knows that he did a takedown, actually. And there you have it, okay? But it's obvious that the feet were tied up. Okay, I just showed you where the feet were tied up. If you don't remember the feet were tied up, I'm going to show you one more time that the feet were tied up on the initial move. Right here. That's the cause of the knockdown. Period. Pure and simple. There's nothing else to that. Okay, so when you when you have that situation, let's see. This is what you get right here. Okay. There it is. Okay. Right there. There it is. Okay. And Lopez is right. That was not a knockdown. There it is. There it is. Let's analyze. As I said, he stepped forward. He's trapped. Jack hook's already been executed, and he pulls him as well. Here you have his left foot, obviously still trapped. Martin is spinning and stepped out. Okay, he steps on out of the way. Right here. Martin knew what he was doing. And he did it again in the later round. Okay? So, that's what it is. All right. And again, we're going to go back. It's round 3. All you're going to see, I'm going to show a little bit of this, is more of the same. You're going to see every now and then Martin will initiate, but most of the stalking is done by Lopez. 90+% of the stalking is done by Lopez. Was he intelligent in how he did it? Not the most. Doesn't matter. Now, I'm going to comment on some things. All right. So in round 1, you had the headbutt. It was Martin's fault. In round 2, you had that knockdown. It was a bad call. But hey, you got to score it the way they say it. Lopez. By round 5, they talked about Lopez. According to CompuBox numbers, it was 33-26 connect. 33 connected by Lopez, 26 connected by Martin. Okay? Lopez had thrown 159 punches, allegedly, and 82 allegedly by Martin. Okay? These were the punches thrown. All right. Now, I thought it was interesting that, this is how things were going. So it's obvious who's working harder. And it's obvious who's working harder and who's landing the punches. If you have any trust in CompuBox, I do and I don't. Sometimes they do better than others, obviously. Okay, so now listen to this comment. I think I have another comment here. Let me see.
Lopez has only landed 11 jabs. We're in the final seconds of round 6.
Okay, he said.
Lopez has only landed 11 jabs. We're in the final seconds of round 6.
So I think it's Statistical, or I'm not sure. He said Lopez has only landed 6 jabs, and we're going into round 6. Guess what? Who cares? It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything, especially when you have a southpaw versus orthodox. The jab becomes less of an issue when you're dealing with the orthodox versus the southpaw, depending on certain circumstances, particularly if they're about the same size, with about the same reach and things like that. It's not that important. Now, if you have much longer arms, height, reach, that type thing, where you can use the jab effectively against a southpaw, or vice versa, if the southpaw can use it as a much taller or longer person against the orthodox fighter, if there's a reason that you can use it and get away with it, that's fine. But at the same time, you're still going to take a risk, even if you have the longer reach, because the right hand is the most important thing, really. As the orthodox fighter, that right hand is the most important for you, and your left hook, and vice versa. The southpaw fighter, the most important thing is his straight left and his right hook. Okay, and of course, Martin was trying to use his right hook all night. He tried to pull the straight left on occasion, but Lopez was using the right hand to the body because Martin was pulling back. Almost the entire fight, he was pulling back. So what do? You hit the body, and that's what Lopez was doing. He was at least doing that much right, so he connected over and over again. So it shouldn't be any controversy here, but there's a lot of controversy. So that's what Testator, whoever it was, that's what he had to say going into the 6th round, as if that makes a difference the number of jabs that Lopez had landed at that point. It's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. Now, all right. So by round 6, the total punches allegedly 237 for Lopez, 136 for Martin. Lopez landed 55, Martin landed 43. So there was a 23% connect rate with Lopez and 32 for Martin. Who cares? Lopez is landing more. Body shots. Lopez had landed 35 at this point, allegedly, Martin 7. Body shots count for a lot, in my opinion. But they are, they do tend to be effective, and they do tend to slow people down in most cases over time. The point is, though, that 35 body shots to 7 body shots. Again, that's telling a larger story. So if we move forward in this fight, and I got to make it a point to say, when you I'll get to Lopez Sr. in a minute, but however, let me go ahead and deal with this. By the time we get to, because what you're dealing with here is no need to just keep looking at this footage, because it's just rinse and repeat. Okay, round after round, it's just rinse and repeat till you get to round whatever it was that there was another knockdown. And I don't remember exactly which round that was, but it was a worse scenario than the first knockdown, because he was tied up even worse. Let's see something. What rounds did Lopez get knocked down in against Martin?
According to ESPN, Martin, 29, dictated the pace with his pinpoint jab and mixed in a timely check hook that floored Lopez for a flash knockdown in round 2.
They don't even mention the other one because they didn't count it. And that's fine. They shouldn't have counted. I was going to show you how it was even worse than the first one. That, what you just heard from Google, is how they control the narrative. They make it seem like Martin controlled this fight with his jab and with his check, and that's not true at all. And you see from what I've shown that it is not the case at all. I'll randomly hit this button, and Lopez is jumping on him again. Okay, like I said, he might not have been the most intelligent in his attack that night, but he did what he had to do. And there's just no reason. All these professional fighters, all these commentators and critics are saying that Lopez lost this fight. And I don't care who said it. They're wrong. I don't care. They're wrong. And I don't even like Lopez. I don't like Lopez like that. He can't control his mouth. He says some pretty racist things a lot of times, and now he's finding out what side he stands on for real, when a brother's not in the mix. So you show me where this wonderfully effective jab is dictating the fight. And I'm not saying he never lands a jab. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it wasn't a critical part of this fight, because it just wasn't on either end. That's for Teofimo. It goes for Martin as well. Okay, there you go again. Now, did Martin Martin landed punches. I'm not saying Martin didn't land punches. I'm not saying he didn't do anything. Of course he landed punches. It's a fight. You're going to get hit. But my point is that Lopez scored more. And he was aggressive the entire fight, and he scored more. Period. As I said, what you see now, this is the whole fight. Rinse and repeat. This is the way it was. So it is what it is. Now they again, in an attempt to control the narrative, in an attempt to make it look like Teofimo's own corner was against him. They talked about he wasn't listening to his instructions, how he didn't sit down when his father told him to sit down. Well, sometimes in between rounds, you don't want to sit down. Sometimes the supporter and the belt dig up into your diaphragm and make it hard to breathe, make it very uncomfortable. So a lot of times people don't want to sit down. A lot of guys will stand up. George Foreman used to stand up, particularly during his second career. But there are reasons why a guy might not sit down. It's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. But they made it a point to say that Lopez Sr. was basically begging him for that last round or the last 2 rounds, whatever the case may be. Here's the situation. When Lopez said, you need this round, what they didn't tell you is that Lopez Sr., who's a joke half the time, although he did give a little good information during that fight, what Lopez Sr. said to his son was, as Lopez Jr. was walking back to the corner, he looked at him and he said in a hushed voice, he said, they're going to steal it from you. They're going to steal it from you. You really need to, and they're going to steal. He said they're going to steal it from you. What does that mean? He knows you're ahead, but he knows how it goes too. So you're going to have to really put a mark on this next round, because we don't want to get this stolen from us. I know you're winning, but they will steal it. And, hey, happens all the time. That happens all the time. So, that's what he was telling his son. And that's why. So they didn't tell you that part of it, because, again, they're trying to control the narrative. And we got so many people out here that have got that hive mentality, where if everybody says it, they just go with the hive. They're afraid to speak out on their own. I couldn't care less. I said I don't even like Lopez like that. But it is what it is. So, if you can't think for yourself, it's no need to even look at these fights, because when you look at these fights, 90% of the time, these guys that are talking will have you thinking you're looking at something totally different. That's what happened with Lopez Sr. I don't have to show anything else, as far as I'm concerned, where this match is concerned. At the end of the night, the announcement was made as to who won the fight. And Martin wanted to act like he had been cheated, and he wanted to be in shock and all that kind of thing. Like he did so much to win the fight, but he didn't. He didn't. And that's that. Now, going back to Lopez Sr., half of the problem with a guy like this, is you got a father that clowns like Lopez Sr. clowns. Then that can put you in a bad way. Obviously, something was on Lopez's mind coming into this fight, it seems to me, and even after the fight, and something going on with the kid. I don't know what was going on there with the wife and the kid, but seemed to be some controversy. And of course, Lopez questioning himself after the fight, and so on and so forth. There's a lot there, but it is what it is. Now, this dude here, and this is why these guys make me sick. This guy here, I came across something while I was looking at some lead up to this fight. And this guy here, Lopez Sr., let me show you how disrespectful he is. Muhammad Ali changed his name. He said he don't want a slave name. And way back, he decided, he went with the Nation of Islam. I don't agree with all that, but that's what he did. And he changed his name to Muhammad Ali, from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. This jackass, Lopez Sr., I saw this clip where he's wearing Cassius Clay, the greatest. Now, if Cassius Clay were alive, he'd probably knock the old man out. In 1967, Muhammad Ali went nuts on a man named Ernie Terrell before the fight and during the fight he had with him. And as a matter of fact, he dragged that fight out. He didn't even try to knock Terrell out. He'll say he did, but he didn't because he wanted to punish him. And he asked him during the whole fight, "What's my name?" Say my name. Terrell refused to respect the man enough to call him by the name he had chosen. And that is disrespectful. And this Lopez senior character is just as disrespectful. I don't expect too many people to see this, but if anybody does see this and you see what he's wearing right here, I want you to know that this jackass is still disrespecting Muhammad Ali in his grave with a jacket like this that Muhammad Ali would knock his head off over. And keep in mind, nobody liked Muhammad Ali when he was coming up because he was a black activist. They hated his guts. He was one of the most hated men, along with Martin Luther King, who they try to act like was so loved back in the day. These people were hated, as was Malcolm X. All these guys were hated, and that's why the two leaders that were not athletes, that's the reason they were both assassinated, X and King. But Ali was just as hated. And when he got weak and when he came up with the Parkinson's and all that, all of a sudden it was much love. No, they loved the fact that he looked helpless. That's what the love was. So, at the end of the day, this is the way that fight went down. Lopez won, there's no doubt. Everybody's throwing a different narrative out there. And they would have you believe that something else happened that night that didn't. And I'm gonna tell you how dirty they are. They all, after the fight, they all came together in agreement. And this is when you know you got a bunch of dogs working against you. They all came together in agreement and met up like little gang members after the fight. Testator, Bradley, Ward, a couple of other guys. And basically taking turns slamming on Lopez, more or less. I don't have that.
Lopez. There will be a lot of questions about what you saw tonight and what the future has in store.
Well, a lot of questions. Why?
With that win, he will be a mandatory challenger in 2023. We have the state of boxing, all the post-fight analysis coming up on the app. Here's.
Okay, so he's talking about be a lot of questions. Why does there have to be a lot of questions? Why would there be a lot of questions? That's simply nonsense. That's nonsense. There's no question as to what happened, and the decision was a just decision. There was one judge that, as I said, I think they scored it 97, 92 or something like that, and they thought that was just ridiculous. But again, I scored it 97, 93. I saw nothing wrong with the scoring. I thought some of it was too close, and that's about it. I didn't think anything was too far as the separation in scores. I thought it was, and I believe one of them scored for Martin, I think. So that was the ridiculous part of it to me. That would have been the travesty. It is a travesty. So at the end of the day, we have everyone saying that Lopez lost that fight. Everyone is in agreement. Excuse me. But, you know, if you think for yourself and if you can see for yourself, then you really should practice. If you have a hard time with this, practice looking at something for what it is, not caring what other people think or say. The truth is the truth. And learn to be honest about what it is that you do see. This is why people get get into so much trouble in so many cases, and why so many people are never helped in so many cases also, because of this type mentality, this hive mentality. Lopez probably needs some, a little counseling, like most people. No big deal. Definitely doesn't need the level of counseling of a Tyson Fury, but he might need a little of that, but that's not anything that needs to be discussed during a boxing match. But they want to put him off as crazy as far as I'm concerned. So right now, they're apparently in the background, working to figure out what they're going to do with Teofimo. Look, this is it. That's the end of this analysis. I showed you about the knockdown. Both knockdowns were very similar. People are arguing that there were 2 knockdowns. There was not even one legit knockdown. People are arguing about the scoring. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the scoring except for the one judge who said that Martin won that fight. Lopez was the effective aggressor in the fight. He obviously landed more punches. It is what it is. Anybody want to challenge me? Feel free. I don't care. I'm right. And if you don't agree, no problem. But we'll wait and see what happens with the next Lopez fight. He does have some work to do. I could point out things that he could really do to enhance his performances, but that's not what I'm here to do at the moment. And who would care? At any rate, if you see it and you like this, then hey, great. If you don't, that's great too. We don't have to agree on everything. And I appreciate you looking. If you looked and I feel good, I'm going to drop something else and hopefully have some fun with it. And that's that. Peace, love. I'm out.